Welcome to the Underpowered podcast. This is a gaming podcast where we are very busy, but still we find time to game. And this is the end of 2022. My name is Shelby Stokes. We have Casey Cool.
Yo.
Eric Scott.
What's up?
And Philip Karen on the cast today.
Hello, and I have a pickle if you want one.
Dude, did you bring a road pickle to this podcast?
Someone gave me a Christmas pickle.
Everyone has a travel pickle.
They did.
And I also brought with me whatever one of these weird meat sausages was. I don't know. You can have that as well. So here you
got
go.
a meat sausage in the pickle. What else are you carrying?
I'm
noticing a theme with these
what else is in
objects.
the gift bag? I mean, I don't know. Some Santa Claus socks that says "Rebel without a claws." So that's kind of cute. And some bacon spread. Let's do it. I just happened to have this on my desk while we were talking. Well, here's some Nutella. Okay, there's someone that got me some Nutella.
Okay.
I hope she watches this podcast too. Here's some bacon spread.
Ooh. I want you to dip the pickle in the bacon spread or get real wild and do it in the
I mean, I will do it, just not right this second. It's just like, it's a lot of salt, man.
It's a lot of salt.
Pickle and Nutella, they go hand in hand for sure.
Yeah. So that's all I have. Welcome in, everyone.
That's right. So we're going to go over our favorite games of 2022. It's the end of 2022. It is December, and we're getting a little retrospective, talking about our favorite games. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with 5 of our favorite games, right?
Yep.
And they're games we played this year. They're not released in 2022. Well, some of them may be, but
I mean, some of them are definitely not. I think here's the thing: we never all play the same game. If we do, it's a multiplayer game and it's something else. And we all have different tastes, and that's why people come to talk to us, because we like to converse on that. But every once in a while, we'll try a gem from the other person. So it's not important for us to say this was the best game, and we're not the people to do that. We actually just want to celebrate games with anybody listening. Right?
Yeah, and if you're listening to this podcast, essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna chop this up into multiple episodes, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, this podcast is multiple episodes. This is part 1.
Part 1.
Game 5.
Of 5 parts, and we're going to count down our top favorite games one at a time, and then we're also going to cover top gaming soundtrack, biggest game news story. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. We're going to cover the wish list of 2023 and our best gaming moment throughout this series. So strap in, we're going to have some fun. Grab your pickles, grab your meat sticks. If you have any bacon jelly, please bring 2.
Yes.
If not, I gotcha.
And I think the man with the bacon jelly is going to start us off with game number 5 for him, his 5th most loved game.
Okay, so game number 5 for me, a couple sentences about it, is going to be Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. Because here's the thing, I know that game has a bunch of glitches in the game. There was a lot of people that complained that there were glitches in the game, but it feels like every game that comes out now has a ton of glitches in it because games are ever more complex. But this is the first time that Lego has tried to do an open world game. Not only can you play through all 9 episodes, but the end game content, which is something that many games struggle with, is abundant. There's the unlockables, the skins, the side quest missions, the fact that you can do a free play, you can run and you need certain characters and you need to use them in different worlds to get you to different places. There's an insane amount of in-game content. So that for me would be my game number 5 for this year.
Good choice.
Nice. I like
Good
that.
choice. And it feels like they really revolutionized what the Lego game is, right? Like prior to this, it seems like they were doing them in a very similar way. This feels like it evolves the format. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, that's why they get a little bit of a break from the criticism, because they were trying an open world concept, and they built out little pockets on every planet. They have a galaxy map, right, that shows every planet in the Star Wars universe. You can unlock those planets in free play after you complete wherever the respective story mission from the main 9 episodes. And yeah, you can go visit them. And then once you're there, you need to use certain characters that have certain symbols within the level to unlock certain doors, to get past certain things. There are boss fights, there's things to explore. So this is a very different approach. They still have the linear approach. The game is very forgiving when you die, right? Nothing really happens. And that's super big for kids. For those of us that do have kids, right? Getting super frustrated when they play games, especially platformers or games where there's a lot of jumping. This game has a very low threshold for death. So they can just keep trying over and over again and progress with the story. So thumbs up from me.
Perfect little one game. It sounds
like. It is. Yes, it is.
I'm going to have to get the little ones on that.
You should. Yeah.
But then you're going down a dark path. You're going down that Star Wars path, and there's no turning back.
Towards the dark side.
I mean, if they're cool, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, someone just texted me like BBV, like before the Battle of Vevin or whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I need to get my Star Wars game on point.
Yeah.
I don't know
could probably
about
lead,
what you just said.
BBV could lead to some weird things in your Google search history. It sounds like to me. Things that I think we get flagged at work.
They called it 10 BBY before the Battle of Yavin. Okay, nerd.
Yes. Speaking of nerds, Eric, what was your number 5 game this year?
My number 5 game was Triangle Strategy.
Oh, nice.
And I had very high expectations for Triangle Strategy as it is an homage to one of my favorite games of all time, Final Fantasy Tactics.
Mm-hmm.
It is a I don't know how do you classify it? It's a speed turn board sort of
like tile-based strategy.
Tactical strategy game that is very deep with individual character customization. Well, not so much customization, but individual character building, stat building, gear building. Heavy. It's a heavy grinding game type of game that I really like, and it's a game that you have to play through multiple times in order to actually get the full story, the full picture of the game, unlock all the characters, and it's something I personally value in a game is the ability to, when that game is over, man, I just want to keep going. And you know what? With the new game feature and the ability to legitimately take your story down a completely different path with your next playthrough and really experience that that other story arc and but you get to maintain all the progress you kept. It's a great game. As I mentioned, it was compared heavily to Final Fantasy Tactics, a game that I loved.
Me too. That was a big thing of our friendship as a kid.
And it was. And I'm going to say, in terms of combat, in terms of battling, in terms of just every single
scenery.
aspect. Yeah, no. I'm specifically talking about the battling and the combat. Oh. It does everything better. It does, the movement and action, being combined together into the one turn, as opposed to Final Fantasy Tactics, where you act, you move, you can't do them both together. You can't really, it just improves on that in every aspect of it. So Triangle Strategy is my number 5.
It's a good baton pass. We will be talking about that game later, maybe sooner than expected. You never know. I have some thoughts as well. I'm so glad though, because Eric's gotten this re-love of video games and things have changed, and that was a big one for us. And it was like a good home cooked meal. It was a good way to put it. I feel
it was. Yeah, it was a very refreshing game to play.
What was really refreshing though for me, and it's the game I played the most on the toilet this year, being refreshed. My number 5 game is Marvel Snap.
Marvel Snap.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. I don't know if you guys played Hearthstone, but the creator of this game, Disney went out and got two former the director Ben Brode and executive producer Hamilton Chu from Hearthstone, and said, "Hey, here's this great property, but we want something quick." They knew it's such a fast-paced game. I was telling someone earlier, longest game I played, maybe 3 minutes. Really respects your time. Shelby and I have always talked about games respecting your time, and it's free to play. You can earn your decks. You even if you don't have great cards, you can make something that's playable and beat the other people. And I'm just waiting for the friends list so when you can start battling your friends. And the random bases, the RNG that creates, no game's the same. You're like, oh, I've seen this base before, but I'm using this deck. And then there's these other two bases. I've never seen this combo. And they added more bases. They keep adding them. They added one that's like a labyrinth and it makes you lose a point. They made one where it's like, there's a turn 7 now. You're like, oh no, another round. And I've really enjoyed playing it. And I hope eventually I can play other people that are my friends because I think that'd be really fun. It's great. Great phone game. Great game. Gonna
And
be
it
putting on
really
my
does a good
computer.
job onboarding its players. I felt like,
Yeah.
it really felt like it wasn't so intimidating that you couldn't get through it, and it's so well balanced that you can take some of those higher point cards, you can take those lower point cards and really play without penalty. It feels like
Yeah.
the ramp to kind of get you into the competitive scene, I thought was really well done.
Yeah, me too. It's just fun, and then everybody has like a cool build. And we had like a discourse in our comment section. Someone was talking like, "You like Quicksilver cards?" Like, yeah, I do. You free card every first turn, guaranteed move. Okay, and he's like, "What? There's better card." I'm like, "I know, but if I can't make a move, I'd rather always make a move than not." He's like, "Well, I'd rather wait till turn 3." And I was like, "You'd rather play half the game not playing a card?" Okay, cool story, guy. Like when he's telling me that, like, I want you to read that out loud.
That's funny because I checked out a fact, and one of their things was like, get rid of Quicksilver. Like that was like the first bullet in their suggested things to do. So
I was like, okay,
there you go. There you
yeah.
go.
It's like good
Yeah.
for you, guy.
Whoever would have
Wrong.
thought that a phone game would be in your top 5?
I think phone game. The thing was, we used to kind of clown on it, but phone games are games. Kids play like a ton of their games. Cloud gaming's going to phones. Your phone is a device, and if you make something good, like I played Pokemon Go for 7 years now, or however long, 5 years. That's not 6, and I bought stuff, and I was like, I used to pay them that, but those developers earned my money. Like I played it more than any other game in my life.
Well,
You know,
your favorite game comes later in this series. Calm
yes,
down
true,
with the Pokemon Go.
right. But mobile games get some respect. They get in the top 5 this year for me.
It's come a long way.
Wow.
Come a long way.
Very nice, very nice. In terms of my number 5 game of the year that I enjoyed, I have The Forgotten City on this list. This is a game that I played kind of when Phil and I were doing the podcast, and essentially what it is, it's a reskin of Skyrim. And what it is, it's like it was built in a mod community, and it's a loop-based game. And
Sean
it's just
told us about this, didn't he?
yeah, it's such a brilliantly assembled game. And I think the reason I enjoyed it so much is, first of all, it's a loop game. So anytime you're looping, I'm like, okay, I'm interested. But there's no combat in this game whatsoever, like none. And really the only weapon or way to advance the story is through knowledge within the game. So as you're going through, you're kind of pushing in different directions, you're investigating mysteries. And with each factoid that you bring back through the loop one more time, you end up being able to circumvent certain parts of the game and get at the end game a little bit more efficiently. There doesn't really seem to be a lot of gating. In these kind of games, sometimes you can go in your first run, it's impossible to get through it. I think this is one that would allow you to get through with like 3 loops, grab a key on one loop, do something else the second loop, or whatever the case may be. And the turn at the end of this game was narratively like impressive for a game that is built on the Skyrim engine of old to come out and really make me think about game design and characters and philosophy in this manner. I was just very impressed all the way through. So The Forgotten City, if you haven't played it, please do. I think it's on Switch at this point. It was on Game Pass. I don't know if it currently is or not, but I don't believe it's a
mod
big penny
anymore.
either.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it is not a mod. It is now a standalone package. It
Okay.
began as a mod.
Crazy. Love it. It's just kind of like how a lot of great games do that. Counter-Strike, Half-Life, right? With that. And then Dota with World of Warcraft.
I mean, League of Legends.
League of Legends. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I love that the modding community, again, I'm a big fan of anybody that mods because I wish I could do that. I was like, oh, what kind of wizard are you, sir? How did you make this magical thing move?
Yeah, and I'm constantly looking for games that are an experience, right, that are pushing the medium forward.
Yeah.
And it was just very impressive to see this game being built on an old engine continue to push the game design forward. So that really kind of, I think it's something special that they put together here. So I'm pretty happy with it. And that concludes the 5th most ranked games in our day 1. Here is our guests list. This is the lists from Turn by Turn.
Hello, Underpowered podcast listeners. My name is Daniel, and I'm the host of the Turn by Turn and Game Dev Hideout podcasts. I was on the Turn and Burn episode of Underpowered and was asked by the guys to share my top 5 games for the year. So, to get right to it, my number 5 pick is Pokemon Legends Arceus. And while I think it was a pretty strange game, I did have a lot of fun exploring the open world and kind of seeing how Pokemon's take on an open world. My number 4 was Triangle Strategy, which I loved for all the SRPG hijinks and mechanics. There were times where the heavy decision making made me super confused about what to do, but overall, great game. My number 3 was Mario Kart 8, which is something I finally picked up after it's been out forever. And I had a lot of fun playing, and now my girlfriend and I play almost all the time. My number 2 is Dragon Quest V, it was my first Dragon Quest game, and I really enjoyed the different mechanics to go with it. And my number 1 game, which is probably a game not too many people are familiar with, is Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, which is sort of Digimon's like mixing take of like Dragon Quest in like a Pokemon game. So definitely recommend that one. Hope everybody had a good year of gaming as well, and excited to see what all will come out in 2023. Bye, everybody.
Great list. I mean, just top shelf. Top shelf.
They're funny guys. I'm glad they're doing good stuff. I love they've started a new podcast where they just interview indie developers, and I'm glad they're doing well, and they're nice guys. Hope to have them back.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun episode that we did with them.
Yeah. Turn and Burn. Remember we all talked about that secret podcast? That's the moneymaker right there.
Turn and Burn podcast.
Good
So now we're going to hop into soundtrack. We're going to talk about our favorite soundtracks of games we played this year.
I think we should go reverse order. So Shelby, can you start us off?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. So the most impressive soundtrack that I've experienced this year is the game Deathloop. Came out in 2021. This is a game that you are kind of going through similar stages or levels over and over. And each time you hop into one of the levels, the music is so different based on the area you're in and then the time of day that you really get a vibe check on each one of the days and zones where it's just like, oh man, I can groove to this. But it's not like so over the top that it's taking over the scene. It's just like you find yourself kind of like nodding your head or humming the song along when you get out of the game. So Deathloop.
Nice. For me, it's the same soundtrack every year. It's Octopath. No, I do love that soundtrack, but actually the Ninja Turtle soundtrack, Shredder's Revenge, was killer. It took that 80s cartoon sound and 8-bit chip tuned it with some real big artists. Like Mega Ran's on there. Mega Ran's a nerdcore hip-hop artist. That's for the nerdy rap scene. But he's great, and he did his songs are great. I really enjoyed it. I could listen to it and it puts you in the mood for a fighting game or just like going on a jog. I loved it. Good soundtrack this year for me. Eric, what about you?
Pokemon Scarlet.
There's some great songs there.
Yes, as you go from zone to zone, the gameplay loop changes. It's great in each zone. The trainer battles, the gym leader battles, they're all good. They're all different, and each one is good, and it really culminates with the Ace Trainer tournament. That game loop, that battle loop was magnificent, and it was just a culmination, best for last. But awesome soundtrack.
Great job, guys. It is, and Toby Fox, who did Undertale's soundtrack that people love, is now like a big part of the Pokemon soundtracks. So they're bangers. Good choice. Yeah. Phil, what about you?
Well, for me, while I didn't have any from this year, I will actually do 2 honorable mentions, which the honorable mentions are going to be what we were talking about off the podcast, which is Fight Night Round 4 had one of the greatest soundtracks of all time for a sports game. Second, the greatest intro song of any game ever to be written ever was the Final Fantasy VIII intro sequence at the beach. So that is my greatest intro song of all time.
That's a good choice. Greatest. And I find those, I put them on my playlist. I still listen to like old game music. I do it in my classroom a lot because it's no words, so they're always like surprised. Like Chrono Cross's soundtrack is also one that I recommend people go listen to.
Well, so back in the day, right, I used to have a guy back when we were kids in high school. There was a guy that would burn CDs because he had the two CD tray and he could burn CDs. And I begged this guy, right? I could scrum up
Cutting edge
$10.
technology.
I begged this guy to burn me this CD, and he finally found it off of some website, wherever it was, Napster or wherever he was, LimeWire, wherever he downloaded it from, and he found it. And that stopped me from having to start a new game every single time I wanted to hear the
song.
intro to Final Fantasy VIII. So
Love it.
yeah.
Love it.
Oh, that's epic.
Well, speaking of epic, I think that wraps up day 1.
Yes, it is. Thanks for joining us for day 1. Come and check us out. We're doing days 2, 3, 4, and 5 here in the near future. Have a good night. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Play games.